Joining us from London is the director of Explicit Freedom, a ministry that helps those struggling with sexual addiction. He talks about his personal battle in his book, Pain for Sex, the spiritual implications of your sex life and mine. Welcome, David Holland.
Welcome, Moya. Thanks for having me on the show. Really great to speak to you.
Well, it's strange speaking to you. I'm a Londoner, but I'm talking to you from America, and you're there in London. But, you know, there we go, the reality of our lives. And now, let me ask you, what is your story for those who haven't read your book?
Okay, basically, Moya, I want to tell you my story. I mean, for some people might find this story a little bit radical, but essentially it begins in 2009 when I went to hospital and I had some heart conditions that I was dealing with. And so I ended up with a heart attack in hospital, speaking to doctors who were telling me, look, we don't really know what's been happening to you. We don't know what's going on. And I came out of hospital after a month of being there, and I was, really not sure what had happened to me. So I basically began praying every day, and I was like, God, you need to heal my heart. The truth was, Moiwa, I needed God to heal my heart in many ways because my heart was contaminated. Because as well as the kind of heart issues physically I was going through, I was dealing with pornography addiction. I was dealing with sexual relationships. I'm a Christian. I love Jesus, but I had this sort of area of my life that was, very dark, and I was constantly pulled into. And so after praying for a month or about 8 weeks maybe after I came out of hospital, something really significant happened to me. I'd made this commitment to pray, and I was praying for 15 minutes in tongues every day. After this sort of season of praying for 15 minutes, one night, Moiwa, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I found myself in my bedroom, and I was screaming at the top of my voice.
Wow.
I was screaming. I felt this surge of emotion from the inside of my being coming out of my fingertips. And I felt it was like a sense of pure evil that was like rushing through my veins. And I'm thinking, what on earth is going on here? This just is like nothing I've ever experienced. And eventually I fell onto the floor like a sack of potatoes, dripping in sweat. And after this sort of scream that had lasted for about 45 seconds, it bruised my vocal cord. Such was the volume and intensity of it. And then as I'm laying on the floor, my dad, who I was staying with at the time because I'd just come out of hospital, he rushes into the room and he said to me, David, what's happened? What is this all about? You're making all this noise. I said, Dad, I don't know. I think maybe I've been delivered from something.
Wow.
And it turns out I'd been delivered from something, because from that day until today, Jesus Christ has cut off and separated me from and freed me from a bondage to habitual pornography use and sexual attachments that had been involved in my life. I mean, I've been completely set free. And it all happened in a moment when I had an encounter with Jesus in my bedroom.
David, let me ask you, I mean, there's so much to ask you, but it must have been terribly difficult for you to pen this book, because you write stuff that then means people who know you, can look and think, wow, David, really? Did you ever consider that when you were writing the book?
Well, you know what? I mean, before I wrote this book, I would never have ever thought that this sort of subject matter, particularly given my history, would be the subject of a book that I would write. But, when the Bible sort of says, whom the Son sets free is free indeed, that has become my testimony. And I know so many men who are in the position I was in. They love Jesus, but they're kind of caught up in this addictive cycle. And so I know I wasn't alone. I don't know any men that were really free. I didn't know any men that were completely, utterly free in this area. And all of them were dealing with it on some level. And so when this happened to me, I felt I had an obligation to share it, because I didn't realize that sex had spiritual implications. Obviously, that's the subtitle of my book, and essentially that's what I've realized through my experience.
Let me just jump in there, and just because our time is so short, but give us some headlines of the implications of some of the things that you say men go through, or some women even go through, implications of the sexual relationships they have, or the addiction to pornography. Tell us some of those.
Well, no, let's speak more in a general sense. I mean, the Bible says, don't give a place to the enemy. That's what it says. And when it says that word place, it literally means topos, an inhabitable space. And so when we do give a place to the enemy in our lives, we can open up doors to what I call shadows, sort of demonic forces, areas of stronghold that the enemy wants to entangle us in. And so when I give a place to the enemy, I'm literally inviting him into certain areas of my life. And that was the spiritual implication for me. Number one, I'd opened up that area of my life to sexual addiction. I'd also opened up my life through emotions and depression, and kind of constantly allowing myself to think in certain mindsets and ways.
Dave, let me, sorry to interrupt you. You've just got about 60 seconds, but I'm interested in knowing, and since the book has been out and since you've been reaching out to different people on this level, some stories that you've gotten back of how people have become free as a result of this truth that you've released. Because, of course, there'll be someone watching in Malawi who's struggling intensely with this, as they are in Germany as they watch this. And it would be helpful to hear some stories of liberation through Jesus's power, as you've seen with the ministry.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to share some. I mean, we're dealing with people who are addicted to sex. I mean, who are literally paying for sex. Christians addicted to prostitutes, for example, or Christians bound up in, paedophilia and things of that nature. And the model that we're using to sort of introduce people to freedom is this: pray in the Spirit. Pray in the Spirit, and we're just encouraging people for 15 minutes every day, pray in tongues, make a protracted commitment to invest in that area of intimacy with God and watch what he will do. And we're finding that this is causing people to break into liberating freedom.